No plan, no matter how carefully crafted, ever unfolds perfectly. Life is full of surprises, mistakes, and variables we can't always control. That's why the most resilient strategies aren't the ones that aim for perfection. They're the ones that leave room for error. In this chapter, Room for Error, we'll uncover why building margin into your decisions is essential for surviving uncertainty and thriving in the long run. The importance of margin. When we think of success, whether in money, business, or life, we often imagine precise execution, the perfect investment, the flawless plan, the carefully calculated risk. But the truth is, reality rarely matches our expectations. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of variables outside our control. That's why one of the most important ingredients for lasting success is not perfection, but margin, a built-in cushion that allows room for error. Margin is the safety buffer that protects us when things don't go as planned. Imagine driving a car down a narrow road with no shoulder. A single mistake could send you crashing off the edge. Now imagine the same road with a wide shoulder. Even if you drift, you have space to recover. That extra space, the margin, is what keeps small mistakes from turning into disasters. In finance, room for error can take many forms. It might be an emergency fund that prevents a medical bill from turning into crushing debt. It could be a conservative approach to investing, avoiding over-leverage so that a market downturn doesn't wipe you out. It could mean buying a slightly smaller house than you can afford, so that even if your income dips, you can still make the payments. Margin creates resilience, ensuring that when the unexpected happens, and it always does, you're not destroyed by it. History provides countless examples. Many investors and companies have collapsed not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked margin. They bet everything on a single outcome, assuming perfection, and were blindsided by surprise. By contrast, those who thrive over the long term are often not the ones who took the biggest risks, but the ones who allowed for error. Warren Buffett famously avoids over-leveraging and insists on a margin of safety in every investment because he knows that uncertainty is unavoidable. Margin isn't just financial, it's psychological too. If you pack your schedule so tightly that a single delay throws your entire day into chaos, you've left no room for error. If you expect perfection from yourself or others, disappointment is guaranteed. By building slack into your time, your energy, and your expectations, you create the flexibility to handle surprises with calm rather than panic. The irony is that people often avoid margin because it seems like wasted potential. Why hold extra cash in an emergency fund when it could be invested? Why buy less house than the bank says you can afford? Why plan for downtime when you could be optimizing every hour? The answer is simple. Because the cost of having no margin is catastrophic. A little cushion may seem inefficient in the short term, but it's what keeps you in the game for the long term. Consider the opposite, over-optimization. Many people push their finances, time, or health to the absolute edge. Leaving no space for error, they max out credit, spend every dollar they earn, or pack their schedules without rest. It works until it doesn't. One unexpected bill, one health issue, one surprise event, and the entire system collapses. Without margin, there is no resilience. Margin gives you not just safety, but freedom. Financial margin allows you to make choices based on values rather than desperation. Time margin allows you to rest, reflect, and pursue opportunities you'd otherwise miss. Emotional margin allows you to handle conflict and setbacks with grace instead of breaking under pressure. In every area of life, margin is the invisible strength that keeps you steady when the world becomes unsteady. The lesson is clear. Success doesn't come from perfection, but from resilience. And resilience comes from room for error. By intentionally building margin into your finances, your time, and your decisions, you create the flexibility to handle mistakes, surprises, and setbacks without being derailed. It may look like you're holding back, but in reality, you're ensuring you can keep moving forward no matter what happens. Why overconfidence is dangerous? When people fail to leave room for error, it usually comes down to one thing: overconfidence. We like to believe we can predict the future, control outcomes, and prepare for every scenario. But the world is too complex for certainty. History again and again shows us that overconfidence is the silent enemy of success. Think of the Titanic. It was called unsinkable, a marvel of engineering. But overconfidence in its design led to a fatal lack of preparation. The ship carried too few lifeboats, assuming they would never be needed. The margin of safety was eliminated by pride, and the result was catastrophe. The lesson isn't about ships, it's about the danger of assuming perfection. In money, overconfidence often shows up as taking on too much risk. Investors assume that because markets have been rising, they will continue to rise. Home buyers assume their income will always increase, so stretching to the maximum mortgage feels safe. Businesses assume that demand will remain constant, so they expand aggressively without reserves. And then, when reality shifts, as it always does, they're left exposed. One of the greatest risks of overconfidence is that it blinds us to the need for margin. Why hold back when you know things will go well? Why prepare for bad times when you're sure good times will last forever? This is why some of the most successful investors and business leaders appear cautious, even boring. They know that certainty is an illusion, and they protect themselves with buffers. Take, for example, the strategy of holding cash. In bull markets, cash looks foolish. It earns little, and people with cash seem to be missing out. But when markets crash, that same cash becomes invaluable, both as a lifeline and as an opportunity fund. It's not about predicting when the crash will come. It's about having room for error when it does. The same is true in our personal lives. Overconfidence makes us think we can handle more than we actually can. We take on commitments until our schedules are bursting. We push our health to the limit, assuming our bodies will keep up. We make plans with no buffer for rest, setbacks, or mistakes. And when reality fails to match our confidence, we burn out or break down. The solution is humility. Recognizing that we don't know everything, can't predict everything, and won't always get it right. This humility naturally creates space for margin. If you admit you might be wrong, you prepare accordingly. If you accept that the future is uncertain, you save more, spend less, and leave flexibility in your plans. Overconfidence feels powerful in the moment, but it's fragile. True strength is not in having all the answers, but in preparing for when your answers are wrong. That preparation, the room for error, is what separates those who survive life's surprises from those who are undone by them. Here's the paradox. People often admire boldness, precision, and certainty, but in the long run, it's caution, humility, and margin that create lasting success. The bold may shine brightly for a moment, but the humble endure. And endurance is the ultimate measure of financial and personal strength. So as you move through your own financial journey, ask yourself, where might I be overconfident? Where am I assuming perfection instead of allowing for mistakes? Identifying those areas and building in margin may feel unnecessary now, but it is exactly what will keep you standing when others fall. The hidden power of safety nets. When people think about success, they usually imagine risk-taking. Bold entrepreneurs betting everything on an idea. Investors putting all their money into one stock. Athletes pushing their limits with no thought of failure. The stories we celebrate are often framed as all-or-nothing gambles. But behind most lasting success is something much less glamorous, a safety net. A safety net doesn't eliminate risk, but it changes how risk feels. Imagine standing on a high wire without any protection beneath you. Every step would be paralyzing, because one slip could end everything. Now imagine the same wire with a net stretched below. You still want to avoid falling, but you know if you do, you'll survive. That confidence makes you move with greater balance, freedom, and creativity. In money, safety nets are the quiet foundation that makes growth possible. An emergency fund, for example, is not exciting. It just sits there, waiting. But when your car breaks down, or you lose a job, or a medical bill arrives, that fund can mean the difference between a temporary setback and financial ruin. It's not about making money. It's about preserving stability so you can keep playing the game. Businesses understand this too. The companies that endure aren't usually the ones that stretch every dollar into expansion. They're the ones that maintain reserves, diversify revenue streams, and avoid over-reliance on a single customer or product. These safety nets don't guarantee success, but they prevent collapse when things go wrong. One of the greatest ironies of safety nets is that they often enable greater risk-taking in the long run. When you know you have a cushion, you're more willing to explore opportunities. A person with no savings might stay stuck in a miserable job, too afraid to take a chance. But someone with a year of expenses saved can quit, explore, and find something better. Margin doesn't limit you. It frees you. History shows us this pattern clearly. Many of the boldest breakthroughs, whether in business, science, or art, came from people who had some form of backup. They weren't gambling recklessly. They were experimenting safely. The innovators we admire often had wealthy patrons, stable jobs, or other forms of support that allowed them to take risks without risking everything. Their safety nets created the space for creativity and boldness. But in our culture, safety nets are often invisible. We celebrate the risk taker and overlook the quiet buffer that made their risks survivable. That's why people sometimes try to copy bold moves without copying the hidden margin. They see the leap, not the net. And when they imitate without protection, they fall harder than they imagined. In your own life, building safety nets means more than just financial preparation, though money is part of it. It might mean cultivating strong relationships, so you have people to lean on during hard times. It might mean maintaining good health habits, so your body can handle stress. It might mean keeping your skills sharp, so if one job disappears, another is within reach. Each of these is a form of margin, a layer of resilience that protects you from life's inevitable setbacks. The beauty of safety nets is that they don't just protect you, they change your mindset. With a net in place, fear no longer controls your choices. You're less likely to cling to comfort or avoid opportunities. You start to take calculated risks, explore possibilities, and grow in ways that someone living without margin could never attempt. In short, safety nets give you both security and freedom, the two things we all need to thrive. So the next time you feel tempted to dismiss margin as unnecessary or wasted potential, remember this. The people who last, who build real wealth and happiness, are not the ones who lived recklessly on the edge. They're the ones who quietly built safety nets, allowing them to fall, recover, and keep moving forward. That's the hidden power of margin. It doesn't just keep you safe, it helps you grow. Endurance over perfection. If there's one lesson we can take from the idea of margin, it's this. Long-term success isn't about brilliance, speed, or flawless execution. It's about endurance. And endurance is only possible when you give yourself room for error. Think about it like running a marathon. A runner who sprints the first few miles at full speed might look impressive for a while, but without pacing and without conserving energy, they collapse before the finish line. The marathon is not about who runs the fastest mile, but who can keep going mile after mile. Wealth, careers, and even relationships work the same way. The ones who last are not necessarily the most talented or the most daring, but the ones who plan for mistakes, setbacks, and surprises. This endurance-based view of success runs against much of our cultural narrative. We admire the big win, the dramatic risk, the overnight success story. But behind most overnight successes are years of preparation, countless small failures, and a margin that allowed recovery. The truth is, the people who appear unstoppable are often just those who gave themselves permission to stumble without being destroyed by it. Margin makes this possible because it absorbs shocks. A person who saves 20% of their income can endure a pay cut more easily than someone who spends every dollar. A company with cash reserves can weather a slow season that would bankrupt a competitor. An investor with diversified assets can withstand market turbulence without panic. These aren't accidents. They're deliberate strategies to prioritize survival over perfection. The opposite, living without margin, creates fragility. A single mistake, a single crisis, a single downturn, and everything falls apart. Without room for error, life becomes a constant high-wire act where one misstep is fatal. You may shine brightly for a moment, but you won't last. And in wealth, as in health, lasting is what matters most. There's a saying in investing. The first rule is to never lose money. The second rule is to never forget the first rule. What Buffett meant wasn't that losses can always be avoided, but that survival is the key. If you protect yourself against catastrophic loss, you give yourself the chance to recover, learn, and grow. If you don't, one bad decision can erase a lifetime of progress. Margin also gives you perspective. When you have room for error, you can think long-term instead of obsessing over short-term swings. You can resist panic when markets dip. You can stay calm when plans unravel. You can endure because you've prepared. This steadiness compounds over time, creating not just wealth, but confidence and peace of mind. The beauty of endurance is that it compounds invisibly. While dramatic risks grab attention, steady survival quietly builds extraordinary results. Consider someone who saves consistently, avoids debt, and invests cautiously with a margin of safety. They may never seem flashy, but over decades they build wealth and security far beyond the person who risked everything for a quick win. Endurance wins because time rewards those who stay in the game. Margin, then, is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. It says, I know I will make mistakes. I know the world is unpredictable. I know perfection is impossible, but I will prepare, endure, and keep moving forward. That mindset is far more powerful than blind confidence because it guarantees resilience. So when you think about your financial decisions, your goals, your career, even your relationships, ask yourself, have I left room for error? Have I built the margin that will keep me safe when, not if, things go wrong? Because in the end, survival is the ultimate advantage. The ones who last are the ones who win. And that's the paradox of margin. It looks like caution, but it's really the foundation of boldness. It looks like restraint, but it creates freedom. It looks like you're holding back, but in reality, you're ensuring that you can keep going, long after others have burned out. That is the true power of room for error. It doesn't just protect you, it ensures you endure. Building room for error gives us the resilience to endure setbacks and thrive in uncertainty. But resilience isn't just about preparing for surprises, it's also about preparing for ourselves, because we change. Our goals, our values, and even our definition of success evolve over time. In the next chapter, You Will Change, we'll explore why flexibility isn't just smart, it's essential, because who you are today won't be the same as who you'll be tomorrow.